So hi, this is part 2 now for chapter 7. We're up to slide 14. So let's go over this example here that we looked at in the previous slide. So let's go back for a minute and review that. All right. So here's the authorized shares, here's the issued shares, and here's the treasury stock shares, right? So how many shares of additional common stock can Golden sell without gaining approval from its shareholders? The firm has 35 million authorized, 15 million are issued, and 1 million are treasury stock. So they bought back 1 million of the 15 million. So 14 million are outstanding, right? 15 million have been issued, right? So and so they can issue another 21 million additional shares because they are authorized for 35 million, right? So they've got 14 million outstanding. They issued 15 but bought back a million. So that leaves 14, and then so that means for a total of 35 they can issue 21 additional million shares without having to get shareholder approval, okay? So the treasury shares can be reissued, okay? And that's included in this right here. So you can see that. All right, so common stock, again, you have voting rights, and you get a proxy statement to vote on the board of directors. And sometimes there's a proxy battle if you're not happy with the management. Some shareholders will try to get the current management thrown out. But you know, you need a number of shares, of voting shares, to get them thrown out, and that happens very rarely. All right, so this is what happens in a lot of companies, like in Google. There's super voting shares, and a lot of the inside owners have multiple votes per share, rather than a single share. So that's why your votes a lot of times don't really count when you're voting on stock and you think you've got some say in the company. So so this is an important consideration. Okay, voting sometimes isn't really what it sounds like. And there are shares that are non-voting, and sometimes you'll end up with shares that have no voting rights. And a lot of times you may have to get a little larger dividend because they'll raise capital through the sale, but they don't want to give up its voting control. And you may get a little larger dividend with that, but it doesn't really seem to matter a lot of times anyway, as I've learned in life about the voting portion. You vote on the board of directors, but most people don't, and they end up getting in anyway. All right, so stocks pay dividends, and you'll get a quarterly dividend if they do pay. Sometimes, of course, like a lot of mine, that I don't get a dividend. They retain the earnings in the company, and the amount of dividends will change, and it's voted on by the board of directors. They try to keep the dividend amounts the same because it sends really bad signals if the dividends are not, if they start changing, especially if they start decreasing them. And you can have your dividends reinvested if you own shares, right? And you could buy additional shares, which is what I do. Okay, so you can read this a matter of fact here, and this went back on the 2003 Jobs and Growth Tax Relief Reconciliation Act. I believe this was under Bill Clinton, or was it? No, this was under George Bush. And the question was, did tax cuts stimulate dividends? And they have some good statistics here about how they did when there was a tax cut, did it, and in general, does it stimulate dividends? So recently there was a tax cut by Trump, and I didn't notice any changes in my dividends. So. All right, so if you want to buy a stock that's international, let's say Toyota or something overseas, right? or Alibaba, you have to buy what's called an American depository receipt. You can't buy shares that are of a company that's not traded on an American exchange. So there's an intermediary that's a bank, and you would buy American depository receipts, and these are these securities right here, American depository shares. So these are securities backed by these shares right here, right? So the receipt has these shares. So there's two different terms here. The receipt contains the shares. So you see, you can hold shares of non-U.S. companies and trade them in a U.S. stock. Okay, and then we have a preferred stock, right? Preferred is just like it sounds. Preferred stock does have a par value, okay? It does have a par value at times, and sometimes there is no par preferred stock, and they'll just tell you the annual dollar dividend. No par means you're going to be told the annual dollar dividend, and par value they tell you what the dividend percentage is going to be, and this is how you determine the annual dollar dividend. All right, so one is called par value preferred, and there's no par value preferred. One shows you a dividend with an actual dollar, and one shows you a dividend as a percentage. Okay, so there's a subtle difference there. All right, so with regard to preferred stock, a lot of companies, you don't see them a lot, but and some companies will have them. It all depends. And what they do is it gives its holders privileges that make them senior. Preferred stock is senior to common stockholders, right? And they're promised to fix the periodic dividend. And as I said previously, it will be a percentage or a dollar amount. Okay, so in a way, preferred stock is kind of looked at as a hybrid or quasi-debt, as they say here. And a hybrid means it's got some features of bonds and it's got some features of stocks. So that's the way that goes. And when it comes to liquidation, if a company goes belly up, basically the preferred stockholders are also given preference over the common stockholders. Okay, so there's a hierarchy about who gets paid. Remember, the bondholders get paid first, right? Preferred stockholders get paid next, and the common stockholders get paid last. Okay, so there's restricted covenants, right? There's, again, with preferred stock, and basically, if any dividends are passed up for any reason, and there's a lot of rules that are that are restricted covenants in the preferred stocks, okay? And if dividends are skipped, you have to get them back, okay? So basically there's a lot of rules and restrictive covenants when they issue preferred stock. All right, so there's a term called cumulative preferred stock. And this is preferred stock for which all past, and this is what I was talking about, unpaid dividends and arrears. Those are dividends that were not paid. When they say in arrears, it was not paid in the past. They have to pay them to you along with the current dividend. So they must be paid before any dividends can be given to the common stockholders. So anything that's owed to the preferred stockholders must get paid first. And there's what's called non-cumulative preferred stock. And depending on whether you have cumulative or non-cumulative preferred stock is unpaid dividends do not accumulate, okay? So if you're going to buy preferred stock, it's important to see whether you got cumulative or non-cumulative to see whether any dividends that are not paid will be paid up front. Now, preferred stock can be called back. Okay, you notice it says there's a callable feature. This is why a lot of times it makes it look like a bond. Okay, So this is a feature of callable preferred stock that allows the issuer to retire the shares within a certain period of time and at a specified price. And there are times when you could be allowed, depends on what's the rules, right? The preferred stock could have a conversion feature. And that's a feature of convertible preferred stock that allows holders to change each share into a stated number of shares of common stock. Okay. So I'll pick up on the other part now. We're almost 11 minutes into this one.